All right, so today we're going to start our character mash, and our character mash is an assignment where we're going to mash two characters that in no way, shape, or form go together. So girl, boy, bad, good, small, big, any configuration of opposite, but they do have to be animated characters. So we don't want to like personalize them with photographs, like take personal faces. We definitely want to use animation. So we're going to get to that in just a moment, but certainly first we have to open up Photoshop. Today, I know that last time we went over tools and so forth, but quite frankly, we really didn't dabble in how the program works. And so I'm going to give you the first couple of steps right now. So as opposed to our reference software, Photoshop is its own data kind of system. And so what that means is I go to File, Open to open up a new document. So there's two ways to get into a document, and so you'll need your notebooks because I'm going to give you some instructions. So number one, you're going to go to File, Open, and it's going to say, okay, where do you want to get your photographs? Now for me, I can go to my drive because I saved them earlier on a flash drive. But for you, you might not have your pictures ready yet. So wherever your photographs exist, that's where it's going to want to ask you where to get your photographs. So I'm going to go to Open. I have them on my flash drive. So I downloaded earlier Cinderella and let's see if Batman. There's Batman. So I'm going to go ahead and select both of them at once, and then I'm going to hit Open. So what will happen is those two images will open in a tabbed system. So you'll notice up here there's the Cinderella. So if I click on Cinderella's tab, that's where she is. And if I click on this other tab, that's where Batman is. Now that's to open up photographs, but I know that I've mentioned to you that Photoshop has kind of morphed into not only a photo editing program, but it's kind of a designy program too, or it can be. So what's cool is we can start designing from scratch as well as opening up a photograph. Here's how you do that. So this would be another instructions on how to. I can go to File, and then you'll notice there's a New, which means I can create a new canvas. All right, so I'm going to hit New. It's going to give me a pop-up, and it's going to say, okay, what do you want that canvas to look like? So I'm going to title this Character Mash. And then, because I want to familiarize you with kind of the interface, what we're going to do is we're going to go with a document size that we're very familiar with, which is 8.5, 8.5 by 11, right? That's a normal sheet of paper. And recognize that I can control pixels, centimeters, you know, like all these parameters. But because I know inches the best, I'm just going to start our character mash with this canvas. So 8.5 by 11, you may want to note that. And then finally, when we're talking pixels and we want to print something off or we want something in high resolution, we're going to want to type in here 300 pixels per inch. That's going to give us a high resolution canvas. So if we had that 72 is low resolution, and the purpose of low resolution is internet related, right? So if we wanted to drop it onto Facebook or whatever, we would select 72, but when we are working with it, it's going to seem really pixelated and kind of blurry. So I'm going to select 300 for right now, and then RGB is the mode I want. It's already defaulted. 8-bit is defaulted. Yes, yes. But I do want a transparent background because I want to start from complete scratch. So I'm going to go to transparent background, and then I'm going to say, cool, yes, I want to select that. You'll notice that once I say OK, I'll get a canvas. It'll appear in that third tab, and now I have a blank slate space. Now remember that I said that you can start as a background image and start putting things on top of this, but I want to kind of show you both options, and I want you to start from scratch. Because you can do cool things like put backgrounds on this, or you can put additional, like a different photograph entirely as the background, right? All right, so there's my character mash canvas. Now I'm going to start finessing these two characters together. And there are a couple of tools that are going to profusely help you get this process done. Now, remember when I was talking about Photoshop last time and the tools? They're pretty brutal because you have to memorize basically all of these, plus the ones that are underneath here too, right, to help you use your tools. It just kind of stands to reason that, like, if you're going to want to move something, that you know which tool that is. It's kind of like a carpenter not knowing that they have a hammer in their tool belt. So part of the idea is to know which tools do what so that you know which tool to use when you need it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this background. What do you think, or what would you suppose is the best tool to use for that? Okay, either the selection tool, in that I'm going to select him, right? So I'm just going to drag around in that space and have Photoshop do the best job that it can here, right? And I'm using my I'm using the quick select wand, so I'm doing actually a pretty decent job. So I can cut him out, right? So let me go to my move tool now. Now that I have a selection, I'm going to grab my move tool, and the way that the move tool works is like this. You click on the image and then you drag up to the tab, you activate the tab, and then you come back down and let go. All right, so that's how you move things from one space to another. Now we have a problem. That problem is he's too teeny, right? So we're going to go ahead and make him bigger. And the way that you make him bigger, and this is a shortcut, is Command T, as in Command Transform. You might want to write that down because you're going to need that extensively today. Then a couple quick notes about Transform. Transform is super cool because it allows you to zoom, right, and change. Also, just recognize that if I pull off of these things that are called handles, I also can rotate, right? And check this out. This is a trip. So let's say I wanted the mirror image, meaning I wanted him, instead of looking this way, to be looking this way. So all I have to do is grab one of the side handles and drag it to the other side, and boom, he's already backwards, right, or flipped. All right. So note that I have the ability to do that. Now, if I just free transform, which is just grab this, I kind of make him squatty or too tall. But if I don't want to mess up the parameters, my shortcut for constrained proportions is Shift. So if I hold down the Shift key and I drag, you'll notice that he's not getting skinny or fat, or he's not getting, taller than his width, right? So basically, sorry, I just popped off my Shift and it like went out. So I don't have to eyeball it. I can just hold down the Shift key and it will constrain the proportions. All right. So right now he's looking a little bit pixelated to me, but when I apply him, he should be okay. Perfect. So there's that. And now I get to start adding elements of Cinderella. So before we do that, though, I wanted to talk to you because remember how I just had it when I was transforming, he looked very pixelated because he wasn't committed to the page. Let's talk about that for a quick second, and I'll show you how to grab your images. So let me go here, and I'm just going to go to Google, and quite frankly, we'll have another formal discussion about copyright. And my rule on copyright is what? Can you use images online? Can you? In this class, no. Like, don't ever try to use other people's images, except for, and this is the big except for, there's a very large umbrella that says you can utilize other people's work for educational purposes with limited audience, limited time, and in no way, shape, or form are we imposing on their ability to make money, right? So in this case, I would advise you to steal Disney work, but in this situation, we're just going to use it to learn. So you can grab a couple of images. So I grabbed Batman, and so I just searched Batman, and then I went to images to narrow that down. But you'll need to know that when I hover over these images here, see how there's these numbers at the bottom? What do those numbers mean? Those are how many pixels exist horizontally and vertically, yes, width and height. So I want something that is more than 1,000 because we're working in high resolution. Otherwise, if you get a small image, what'll happen is what? It'll be pixelated, yeah. So just FYI, we're first of all looking for large images. So we can actually isolate that, which is pretty cool. Size, large. Let me turn this off. This is driving me nuts. Now, all the images that I can see are going to be large images, right? So I can select from them. But let me go back just so you can... no, we'll go like this. We can use this. So let's say we wanted this. And by the way, when I'm looking for images for Character Mash, I would never pick an image like this because it's super hard to cut this person out. See how there's a lot of complexity in the frame? Pick something for your sake that is not complicated. This is complicated. Something that has a clean background, that's easy to remove. That's a clean background. This is a clean background. So pick something that's fairly easy to remove so that you're not working really, really hard. Like this would be super hard to remove. So for this project particularly, just grab that, something simple. All right, so speaking of something simple, let's go here. All right, there's my image. Okay, it's decent. I'm going to click on it. Now here's the trick. Number one, if I grab this guy here, it kind of looks like a PNG because I could see the background. Okay, so if I grab this guy here and I just right click and save image as, I'm going to have a very low resolution because currently we're in a thumbnail form of the image, okay? So what we want to do is we want to go to view image, and then you'll notice most often when we go to large there's a plus sign. So we want to get the full resolution, right click, save image as, save it to where? Desktop, so you can find it fast, right? Save. Okay, cool. We have our Batman. It is a PNG. Okay, so I'll have to explain that. A PNG is different than a JPEG because you have a clear background already. But now we have a full resolution image. Now to get this into Photoshop, I can do one of two things, right? I can go to File, Open. It's going to say, okay, where do you want to get it? I want to get it on the desktop. There's my Batman. I can click on that and open it, right? So I can do it that way, but just FYI, if I drag it from my space, my desktop space, into Photoshop like this, I'm only going to have a part of the file. See how it has an X through it? When I commit that, I'm going to have a smart object, and I don't necessarily want that. That's going to complicate your life in the future. So don't drag it from the desktop into Photoshop. If you do want a shortcut, let me show you how to do that. So if you don't want to go to File, Open, you can drag your image over the Photoshop icon. You got it? So over the Photoshop icon, and it will open up the full file for you. Got it? So no, just drag in, although that's pretty intuitive. Like most people think that you can do it, and you probably should, quite frankly, but it doesn't work so well in Photoshop. It's going to give you a smart object. All right, on we go. So we need a high resolution photograph, and then that way when we transfer our Batman onto the character mesh, we can have a full resolution and he's not pixelated. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's a little bit about resolution. And now, of course, I've selected, let's go back to the character mesh itself. So I have a decent pixel count, and that's why my character mesh looks okay in this enlarged form. Then I'm going to go to my Cinderella, also, by the way, a large image. In fact, I can check that by going to image size. 13 by 13 at 72, so it's pretty big. Here's the full size, the dimensions. So I want to move Cinderella's dress onto my Batman here. So yes, I can select her, or I can do something different. I can go to my magic eraser tool, and I can magically erase everything around her with one click. So there's another possibility. If I decide that I don't want her head, I can erase that in just a second, but I want to move her onto my Batman. So I'm going to go to my Move tool, click on her, activate my tab, come back down, drop, Command what? T. That's my transform. Shift to hold to constrain those proportions. I might need to manipulate it a little bit. I'm going to put Batman's dress on him. So I'm going to go ahead and double click, and that's going to commit my transformation. You probably will have a check mark up here somewhere, where if you just click the check mark, that will apply the transformation. But we're going to start putting and finessing these two characters together. So number one, I want to take away her shoes so that Batman's boots are showing through. I'm going to hit Command plus, which is my what? Zoom. Yep, I just zoomed in. Then I'm going to go to my eraser tool, and my eraser is pretty small. I want it much bigger right now, so I'm going to hit my bracket keys. My right bracket is going to take me a lot bigger. Just so you know, I can change it here too, but it takes too many clicks, so I like to use the shortcuts because it makes my life easier. Now let's say I was active in the Batman layer and I started erasing. Why isn't her shoe erasing? That's right, we're in a completely different layer. So I'm just going to go back to my history so I can get my Batman back. And then I'm going to go to the right layer. So pay attention to these layers. One of the nemesis of course, beginning Photoshop users is that they're in the wrong layer. So they're like, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? And it's because they're in a completely different layer. So just pay attention to that. That will help you. And so I'm going to go back in, and I'm just going to erase. Whoops, I didn't get all of his boot back, I guess. So let's go back and get that. By the way, you can go all the way back here. Yep. All right. So Cinderella, we can erase this part. If I had a lot of time, I would go back in with a smaller eraser and just kind of detail this, right? Get really tight in here. And of course, I can zoom all the way in and get really detailed, right? I can keep making my brush smaller and smaller until it has the perfect erase, right? All right, so there's that. I also want to erase her head, so I'm going to go back to my eraser and I'll make that bigger again. And I'll just brush out until her kind of necklace here. And then now I get to start finessing. Command T again so that I can make that a little bit bigger. And I can move her by just clicking on that around so that it makes a little bit more sense. By the way, here's a secret. I love this secret. It's called the nudge. So watch my Cinderella dress. I'm going to use my arrow keys and I'm just going to go up a pixel. So if I have to manipulate just a titch, I can hit a pixel at a time by just hitting my nudge or my arrow keys. Alright, so let me apply her again, and then I want to go back to that eraser tool and give him a little bit of face there. Alright, not too bad. I can use the nudge in the move tool there. Alright, and now I can start working with his arms. Now with his arms, I want his hands to come outside of the dress. So I'm going to do something a little bit tricky. I'm going to go to my layers palette here, and I want to see through her so that I can see what I'm actually erasing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my opacity. My opacity is indicative of how see-through this layer is. And by the way, opacity means not see-through, but I can allow it to become see-through. So you'll notice that as I drag along here, I can start to see where Batman's hands are, right? So that's what I want to do is I want to bring her down a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to go back to my eraser tool. That brush is too big, so I'm going to use my bracket keys to make those smaller. And then, okay, I have a little bit of an overshoot, not to worry. So I'm going to go ahead and just clean up the space around where his hands are so it looks like the hands are in front of the dress. Alright, okay, now I can pull my opacity back up and see what that looks like. Alright, so now it looks like his hands are in front of the dress and we're starting to morph a little bit more. Alright, so those are some of the techniques. You're going to use your selection tools, you're going to use your move tool, you're going to use the eraser, you're going to be moving things back and forth, transforming and morphing basically two characters into one. Okay, so that's kind of how I want you to start the process. Create a canvas, pull two images onto that canvas and start manipulating. Now remember that the brushes have different sizes and shapes, so the selection tool specifically, if you need a square, you can use a square, but if you need a specific shape, you can draw a shape via the lasso, or you can quick select it with, of course, the quick selection tool. One final thing is when you're done, I'm going to go to File, and then because this is a Photoshop, it's not a reference software, I'm going to go to File, Save As, and it's going to say, okay, what do you want to name it? And then here's something unique. I want you to look up here. What is the file format? What do you think it would be, or what should it be? What's normal? JPEG, right? Because both of those are JPEG, so you would think like math, like JPEG plus JPEG equals JPEG. But because we're working in Photoshop, it turns it into a Photoshop doc because we have now layers right here, right? So what that means is when we save, if we want to continue working on this, we have to save it as a PSD because we're going to be working on this for 2 full days. So we're going to work on it today. And if you're not done by the end of the period, which probably you won't be, you want to save it as a PSD. Why? That's right. So the layers will, the integrity of the layers will still be there. If you turn it into a JPEG, so I can do that, but if I turn it into a JPEG, watch what happens. Maybe I should do this another way. Sorry, I'll do this way. All right, so this is what happens when you JPEG it. A couple things happened. Did you notice? What are some of the things that happened? Number one, in the layers palette, what happened? They were squished into one, so we no longer have the ability to edit those layers. And number two, what happened to my background? It's no longer transparent. Now I have white. It automatically applies the white for me. Yes, so we definitely want to save in PSD so that we can continue working on our document the next time. So I'm going to request today, instead of having our slug, which is normal, right, last name, first name, period, I'm going to have you save these projects for today only as your first name .psd in the Digilab if you need some space to save it, so that you can pick it up next time and continue working, so that you don't want to be one of those people that has to like redo their entire project, right? So you want to use the time and work that you've already done. So please save when you're done as your first name. That'll tell me that it's just storage space. You don't want credit for it. And then PSD so you can continue working on it next time. All right, so that is your character mash and some kind of tips and tricks on the tools that you're going to be using today. So go ahead, find your images, and then pull them into Photoshop and then get to work.